The crystal glasses clinked as Ethan Thompson raised a toast to his wife. To 5 wonderful years with the most beautiful woman in the world. Olivia Hayes smiled, her eyes meeting his across the candlelit table in the upscale restaurant. But as she lifted her glass in return, something shifted within her. Her smile faltered, abruptly replaced by a look of confusion, then distress. The delicate glass slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers, shattering on the polished floor. And then, she collapsed. Across the hushed dining room, Dr. Ben Carter wasn't celebrating. The brilliant young oncologist was dining alone, his mind still preoccupied with his challenging patients back at the hospital, when the commotion suddenly erupted near the front window. He didn't know then, couldn't possibly know, how his life was about to become inextricably intertwined with the woman who had just collapsed, or that beneath his calm, professional exterior lay a connection to her so profound, so unexpected, it would ultimately change everything. Before we continue this gripping story, take a moment and let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. Someone call an ambulance. The urgent cry cut sharply through the low murmur of conversations and the gentle clinking of silverware that defined the restaurant's sophisticated ambience. Diners turned in their seats, startled to see a woman slumped unnervingly in her chair, her husband standing frozen beside her, paralyzed by shock. Dr. Ben Carter was already on his feet before he'd even made the conscious decision to move. "I'm a doctor," he announced clearly, pushing politely but firmly through the small crowd that had quickly gathered around the table. The woman's skin had taken on an alarming, jaundiced yellow tinge, a stark contrast to her dark hair, and her breathing was shallow, labored. "What happened?" Ben asked calmly, kneeling beside her chair, his medical training kicking in instantly. I don't know," the husband replied, his voice tight with barely concealed panic. "She was fine 1 minute, laughing, and then she just fell." Ben placed 2 practiced fingers against the woman's neck, counting her rapid, thready pulse. "Sir, what's your wife's name?" "Olivia." His voice trembled. "Olivia Hayes." Something flickered across Ben's face, then so brief, so fleeting, it was almost imperceptible. A jolt of recognition he couldn't immediately place. "Olivia," he said gently, trying to rouse her, leaning closer. "Olivia, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered weakly but didn't open. "Has she been ill recently? Any symptoms you've noticed?" Ben asked, his calm, professional demeanor carefully masking the strange, unsettling jolt he'd felt upon hearing her name. Ethan Thompson shook his head numbly. "She's been tired lately, I guess. Complained of some stomach pain off and on. We just thought it was stress from a big project she's been working on." The distinct wail of approaching sirens cut through the tense air outside. Ben stayed right beside Olivia, continuously monitoring her vital signs until the paramedics arrived moments later. As they expertly transferred her onto a stretcher, he made a quick, decisive decision. "I'm Dr. Carter, oncologist at Boston Memorial. I like to follow this case," he told the lead paramedic crisply, then turned to Ethan. "I'll meet you at the hospital." Ethan could only nod numbly, his eyes fixed on his wife's still form as she was wheeled rapidly away. The harsh fluorescent lights of the emergency room waiting area cast long, unsettling shadows on Ethan's pale face as he paced relentlessly back and forth. 3 agonizing hours had passed since they'd rushed Olivia in for a battery of urgent tests. The celebratory anniversary dinner now seemed like a distant memory from another lifetime. "Mr. Hayes?" Ethan looked up sharply to see Dr. Carter standing in the doorway, his expression undeniably grave. "How is she?" Ethan asked, his voice cracking under the strain. "She's stable for now," Ben replied quietly. "But I'm afraid I need to speak with you about the initial test results. Is there somewhere more private we can talk?" Ethan felt his stomach drop sickeningly as he followed the doctor down the sterile hallway to a small, windowless consultation room. The walls were painted a pale, supposedly soothing blue, adorned with generic framed nature photographs that nobody ever really looked at. They were clearly meant to be calming, but nothing could possibly calm the violent storm brewing inside him now. Mr. Hayes, Ben began gently but directly. The preliminary tests show significant masses on your wife's pancreas, and her liver function is severely compromised. We'll need to do a biopsy to confirm, of course, but the initial indicators strongly suggest pancreatic cancer. The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. Cancer? That's impossible. She's only 35. I understand this is a tremendous shock, Ben said sympathetically. Unfortunately, while pancreatic cancer is indeed more common in older adults, it can occur at any age. What's particularly concerning in Olivia's case is that the presentation suggests it's already quite advanced. What? What does that mean? Advanced? Ben met his frightened gaze directly, his own expression somber. It means the cancer has likely spread beyond the pancreas. We'll need to perform more tests to determine the exact stage. But I want to be completely honest with you. Mr. Hayes, pancreatic cancer is exceptionally aggressive, and by the time noticeable symptoms appear, it's often progressed significantly. Ethan sank heavily into a nearby chair, his face suddenly ashen. But you can treat it, right? Surgery? Chemotherapy? We will certainly explore all available options, Ben assured him. But again, I need to be upfront with you. The 5-year survival rate for advanced pancreatic cancer is unfortunately quite low, typically around 5 to 10%. Ethan's eyes widened in horror. 5 to 10%? That's practically nothing. It's not nothing, Ben countered firmly but gently. It means people do survive, and there are constantly emerging experimental treatments showing real promise. We'll discuss all the possibilities in detail once we have the complete diagnosis. Just then, a nurse appeared quietly at the doorway. Dr. Carter? Mrs. Hayes is awake now. Ben nodded. Thank you. He turned back to Ethan. Would you like to see your wife now? Olivia looked impossibly small and frail, lying in the stark hospital bed. The crisp white sheets emphasizing the unnatural yellow tint still clinging to her skin. Jaundice, a telltale sign of her compromised liver function. When she saw Ethan enter the room, she attempted a weak smile. Some anniversary dinner? Huh? She murmured weakly, her voice raspy. Ethan took her hand gently, his eyes immediately welling with tears he couldn't control. Oh, Liv, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, she whispered, squeezing his hand faintly. What? What did they say? Why did I collapse? Ethan looked helplessly towards Ben, silently pleading for him to take over. Mrs. Hayes, Ben began, stepping forward. I'm Dr. Ben Carter. I happened to be at the restaurant when you collapsed. I specialize in oncology here at Boston Memorial Hospital. Olivia's grip on Ethan's hand tightened noticeably. Oncology? That means cancer. Ben nodded, his voice gentle but direct, respecting her intelligence. The initial tests show masses on your pancreas. Olivia, we suspect the cancer may have spread to your liver, which is what's causing the jaundice. We need to run more tests to confirm the exact diagnosis and determine the stage. Olivia closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the devastating blow. When she opened them again, they were surprisingly clear, focused, and resolute. Tell me everything. Doctor, no sugarcoating. Over the next 20 minutes, Ben carefully explained what they knew so far and outlined the necessary next steps, more comprehensive scans, a tissue biopsy for confirmation, and consultations with various specialists to determine the absolute best course of treatment moving forward. What about What about the costs? Olivia asked then, her voice practical despite the circumstances. Our insurance is decent, I think, but I know cancer treatment can be incredibly expensive. Ben noticed how Ethan shifted uncomfortably beside her at the mere mention of finances. It was subtle, a slight tightening around his eyes. A barely perceptible withdrawal of his hand from Olivia's, but Ben had seen similar, almost imperceptible reactions many times before. Money concerns often revealed hairline cracks in relationships that the immense pressure of a serious illness would later shatter completely. Let's focus on getting your definitive diagnosis first, Ben suggested calmly. The hospital has excellent financial counselors who can help you navigate insurance coverage and potential costs when the time comes. Dr. Carter, Olivia said then, her voice stronger now, more determined. Be straight with me. Realistically, what are my chances? Ben met her direct gaze. There was something remarkable about her eyes, a clarity, an inherent strength that struck him profoundly. Pancreatic cancer is admittedly one of intermediary's more challenging cancers we face. He stated honestly, the 5-year survival rate for advanced cases is low. As I mentioned to your husband, typically around 5 to 10%. But statistics are just numbers. Olivia, they don't account for crucial individual factors like your overall health, your age, your specific genetic makeup, or importantly, new treatments that might become available even during your own course of therapy. I've personally seen patients beat odds much worse than these. Thank you for your honesty, Olivia said quietly, her gaze unwavering. I'd like to be your primary oncologist. Olivia, if you're comfortable with that, Ben offered then. I happen to have a particular research interest in pancreatic cancer. Is that why you were so quick to help back at the restaurant? Ethan interjected suddenly, something sharp, almost offensive, in his tone now. Ben hesitated for a fraction of a second. How could he possibly explain the strange, almost magnetic compulsion he'd felt to help this specific woman? The eerie, almost cosmic sense of recognition he'd experienced the moment he heard her name? I'm a doctor, he said simply, opting for the easiest truth. Helping people is what we do. But as he left the room moments later to order the necessary additional tests, Ben knew, deep down, there was more to it than just professional duty. He just couldn't explain, not yet, not even to himself, why he felt so inexplicably drawn to Olivia Hayes' case, or why he was already making a silent, personal commitment to do absolutely everything within his power to try and save her. Over the next week, Olivia underwent a relentless battery of tests that ultimately confirmed their worst fears. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer that had already metastasized aggressively to her liver. In the quiet, somber atmosphere of the oncology department's main consultation room, Ben carefully laid out their limited treatment options. Standard treatment would involve chemotherapy, he explained gently, primarily aimed at slowing the progression of the disease and managing your symptoms. He paused, then leaned forward slightly. There's also a promising clinical trial currently underway at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute that's showing particularly encouraging results for your specific genetic subtype of pancreatic cancer. I've already taken the liberty of discussing your case preliminarily with the lead researcher, Dr. Evans, and based on your profile, you will be a very good candidate. Olivia sat straight back in her chair, absorbing every single word with intense focus. Ethan sat beside her, his face a carefully constructed mask of deep concern. But Ben noticed again how he seemed distracted, glancing furtively at his phone whenever it buzzed quietly in his pocket. The trial protocol uses a novel combination of immunotherapy and targeted agents. Ben continued, explaining the complex science in layman's terms. Basically, drugs that attack cancer cells possessing specific genetic mutations. The early phase results are showing significantly improved survival rates, and, importantly, better quality of life compared to the standard chemotherapy regimen alone. What are the costs involved? Ethan asked immediately, his voice sharp. Clinical trials like that can be incredibly expensive, right? And our insurance doesn't always cover experimental treatments. Actually, in most clinical trials, the majority of the research-related costs, the experimental drugs, extra monitoring are covered by the research sponsors. Ben explained patiently. Your insurance would typically still cover the standard care costs associated with your treatment. There would likely be some out-of-pocket expenses for things like travel, copays, and certain medications. But overall, the financial burden shouldn't be overwhelming compared to standard care. Ethan still didn't look convinced. And what about work? He pressed on. Olivia is a highly sought-after landscape designer. She has major projects scheduled months in advance. How is she possibly supposed to maintain her business going through all of this? Ethan, Olivia said softly, placing her hand gently on his arm. Right now, we're talking about my life here. I know. Liv? Of course. I know. Ethan responded quickly. Perhaps too quickly. I just want to fully understand everything we're facing. Ben studied the couple carefully again. Ethan's concerns weren't entirely unreasonable on the surface, but there was still something unsettling in his overall demeanor that deeply troubled Ben. A subtle distance. A calculated coolness behind his words that seemed strangely at odds with the gravity of the situation. Mrs. Hayes, Ben began formally. Please, call me Olivia. She interrupted with a small, wan smile. Olivia, Ben corrected himself, returning her smile warmly. Treatment will undoubtedly be intensive, and you will absolutely need strong support around you. Many patients find they need to take a significant leave of absence from work, at least during the most aggressive initial phases of treatment. I can reschedule some projects, maybe pass others along to trusted colleagues. Olivia said thoughtfully, already problem-solving. My clients, they'll understand. And financially? Ben prompted gently, watching Ethan closely. We have savings, Olivia stated, glancing briefly towards Ethan. And the house is almost paid off. We'll manage. Ethan nodded quickly, but his jaw remained tight. Of course. We will. Whatever it takes. As the consultation concluded, Ben made another spur-of-the-moment decision. Olivia, I'd like to oversee your case personally. Even if you decide to enroll in the clinical trial at Dana-Farber, I can coordinate closely with Dr. Evans and her team. Why? Ethan asked again, his tone blunt, almost accusatory this time. You barely even know us. Isn't this kind of involvement outside your usual procedures? Before Ben could formulate a response, Olivia squeezed her husband's hand firmly. Ethan, Dr. Carter is generously offering to help us. We should be grateful. I have a particular research interest in cases like yours. Ben explained, deliberately keeping his voice neutral. Professional. And I strongly believe I can provide the essential continuity of care that statistically gives patients the best chance for positive outcomes. What he didn't say, couldn't possibly articulate, was that from the very moment he'd heard Olivia's name spoken in that restaurant, he'd felt an inexplicable, almost predestined connection, as if he'd somehow been preparing for this exact moment, this specific case, without even knowing it. But that wasn't something he could reasonably explain to a frightened, possibly skeptical husband, or even fully comprehend himself. Not fully. Not yet. We're very grateful for your interest. Dr. Carter, Olivia said firmly, giving her husband a pointed, silencing look. And we accept your kind offer. As they left the consultation room together, Ben watched them walk slowly down the long corridor, Olivia leaning slightly on Ethan, his arm placed somewhat stiffly around her waist. On the surface, they looked like any ordinary couple facing a devastating diagnosis together, united in their fear and determination. But Ben couldn't shake the persistent, nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right beneath the surface. The way Ethan had reacted to any discussion about finances. The subtle but noticeable withdrawal whenever tough realities were mentioned. Ben had seen it all before. Some people simply couldn't handle the immense emotional burden of watching someone they supposedly loved suffer. And he deeply feared Ethan Hayes might just be one of them. 2 weeks into Olivia's grueling treatment regimen, Ben arrived at Boston Memorial Hospital earlier than usual. The soft dawn light was just beginning to break over the sleeping city skyline as he made his way purposefully towards his office, planning to review Olivia's latest complex test results before starting his morning rounds. She had bravely started the clinical trial, enduring the first difficult round of the combination therapy with remarkable resilience and stoicism, though the side effects had been predictably brutal. His phone rang sharply just as he was settling in at his desk. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar local number. Dr. Carter speaking. Dr. Carter? The voice on the other end was female. Shaky. Almost unrecognizable. It's Olivia Hayes. Ben tensed instantly, immediately alert. Olivia? What's wrong? Are you experiencing new symptoms? No. It's not that. Her voice cracked audibly. I didn't know who else to call. Ethan is gone. Gone? Ben echoed, confused. What do you mean, gone? I woke up this morning, and he just wasn't here. He left a note. Her voice broke entirely then, dissolving into quiet, heartbroken sobs. Ben's grip tightened unconsciously on the phone receiver. Olivia, are you at home right now? Yes. Okay. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Just try to stay calm. Olivia. Deep breaths. Olivia's home was a charming, meticulously maintained Victorian located in a quiet, tree-lined suburb, fronted by a beautiful garden that, even in early spring, showed clear signs of a professional designer's loving touch. But as Ben approached the front door, he immediately noticed small, unsettling signs of recent neglect. The lawn needed mowing, and some potted plants near the entrance were visibly wilting. Small details, perhaps, but they spoke volumes about the chaos likely unfolding inside. Olivia answered his knock almost immediately, as if she'd been waiting right by the door. The woman who greeted him was merely a shadow of the vibrant person he'd first met at the restaurant just weeks earlier. The harsh treatments had already taken a significant toll. Her face was noticeably thinner, her skin unnaturally pale, her usually lustrous dark hair now noticeably thinner, more brittle. But it was the profound hollowness in her eyes that struck him most deeply, the unmistakable look of someone who had been not just physically ravaged, but emotionally devastated to their very core. Thank you for coming, she said softly, stepping back automatically to let him in. I'm so sorry to bother you like this. It's absolutely no bother, Olivia, Ben assured her gently, following her into a sunlit, tastefully decorated living room filled with comfortable furniture and beautiful artwork that spoke of cultured, sophisticated tastes. But there were jarring signs of disruption here, too. Empty spaces on bookshelves where cherished items had clearly been recently removed. Faded rectangles on the walls where pictures had once hung. You said Ethan is gone? Ben prompted gently, sitting on the sofa across from where she sank wearily into an armchair. Wordlessly, Olivia handed him a single folded piece of paper. Ben opened it slowly, his stomach tightening with dread as he read the brief. Curt message scrawled inside. Olivia, I can't watch you die. I'm sorry. Ethan, that's it? Ben asked, disbelief coloring his voice sharply. This is all he left? Olivia nodded numbly, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. I tried calling him, of course, but his phone goes straight to voicemail. Then I started noticing things missing from the house. His clothes from the closet, his laptop from the study, our wedding photo from the mantelpiece. She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. So, I checked our bank accounts. Ben braced himself, already suspecting what was coming next. They're empty, Olivia stated, her voice eerily calm now, devoid of emotion, completely drained. Our joint checking and savings accounts. He transferred everything out electronically yesterday. Apparently, the credit cards have all been canceled too. Even the automatic mortgage payment that was supposed to go through yesterday. It didn't happen. Ben felt a surge of raw anger, so intense it momentarily robbed him of speech. In his years as an oncologist, he'd seen families tested by the crucible of cancer in countless, heartbreaking ways. He'd witnessed relationships strain under the pressure, and sometimes, tragically, break apart completely. But this, to abandon a spouse at their absolute, most vulnerable moment, and then deliberately take everything, leaving them destitute, this was a special, despicable kind of cruelty he hadn't encountered before. Have you called the police? He asked finally, trying to keep his voice even. Olivia gave a short, bitter laugh that held no humor. And tell them what? My husband left me and took his money? It's not technically illegal. Dr. Carter, our accounts were joint. Legally, he had every right to clean them out. Ben, he corrected her gently again. Under these extreme circumstances, I think we can definitely use first names. She nodded, a ghost of a weary smile crossing her pale face. Ben, okay. What about family? Friends? Is there anyone who could help you right now? My parents are both gone now. I have a sister, Jessica, out in Seattle. But, well, we're not particularly close. Haven't been for years. And friends. She shrugged helplessly, her shoulders slumping. Cancer has a way of showing you who your real friends are, doesn't it? Most people have kind of kept their distance since the diagnosis. Too uncomfortable for them, I guess. Ben quickly considered their options. Your treatment absolutely cannot be interrupted. Olivia, especially now. We need to make absolutely sure that continues without any disruption. I don't see how, she replied, her voice small, defeated. I have maybe $2,000 left in a small personal account he didn't know about. My next mortgage payment is due in just 2 weeks. The property taxes are due next month. And then there are all the mounting medical bills. She trailed off, looking utterly lost, overwhelmed. Did you try contacting Ethan's office? His work? Olivia nodded wearily. His assistant just said he's taken an extended, unexpected sabbatical abroad. Claimed she didn't know where or for how long. She even seemed surprised I didn't know. A single tear finally slipped down her cheek. 5 years of marriage, and he couldn't even face me. Just a note. 7 callous words. Ben's mind raced rapidly through possibilities. There were patient assistance programs, various charity foundations, ways perhaps to delay payments. But none of that would solve the immediate, critical housing crisis or provide the stable, supportive environment Olivia desperately needed to effectively battle her aggressive cancer. May I? He asked, gesturing toward the notepad lying on her coffee table. When she nodded mutely, he quickly began jotting down some crucial information. This is my personal cell number. Olivia, call me anytime, day or night, if you need anything at all. And this, he wrote down another number, is Sarah Jenkins, the hospital's absolute best social worker. She's amazing. She can help you navigate all the potential financial assistance programs. I've never needed charity before, Olivia said quietly, staring down at her hands. It's not charity, Olivia. Ben countered firmly. These programs exist precisely for situations exactly like yours when a catastrophic illness creates unexpected, devastating financial hardship. Pride has absolutely no place in cancer treatment. You need to use every single resource available to you right now. She nodded slowly, the fight temporarily gone from her eyes. Now, Ben continued, smoothly shifting back into doctor mode. Do you have any pain today? Are you experiencing any new or worsening symptoms? He performed an impromptu checkup right there in her living room. Her vital signs were relatively stable, thankfully, but she was clearly exhausted, severely stressed, and dangerously dehydrated, all perilous conditions for someone undergoing such intensive cancer treatment. As he was preparing to leave a short while later, Olivia reached out and touched his arm lightly. Why are you doing all this? Ben, coming all the way out to my house on your day off? Helping me figure all this out? It's far beyond what doctors normally do. Ben hesitated again. How could he possibly explain what he himself didn't fully understand yet? The undeniable pull he felt towards her specific case? The overwhelming sense of personal responsibility that went far beyond mere professional duty? Let's just say, I have personal reasons for taking a special interest in pancreatic cancer patients, he said finally, settling on a partial truth. And I strongly believe that no one should ever have to face this disease alone. It wasn't the whole truth, not even close, but it was all he could offer her right now. As he drove back towards the hospital, Ben made an urgent call to the hospital's financial department. By the time he reached his own office, he had somehow managed to arrange for all of Olivia's ongoing treatments, including the expensive clinical trial, to continue completely uninterrupted, regardless of her current ability to pay. If anyone asked questions later, he'd figure out a way to explain it then. But right now, ensuring Olivia's essential care continued without pause was all that mattered. The next few weeks settled into a grim, challenging routine. Olivia's physical condition unfortunately deteriorated further as the cumulative treatment side effects intensified. While the cutting-edge clinical trial protocol was fighting the cancer, the aggressive therapy was also simultaneously ravaging her already weakened body. Ben watched with growing, helpless concern as she lost more weight, her energy levels depleting significantly with each difficult cycle of treatment. Yet somehow, despite everything she was enduring, Olivia maintained a quiet, resolute dignity that constantly humbled him. She never complained. Not once. She never missed a single scheduled appointment. And even on her absolute worst days, she somehow managed to greet the nurses and hospital staff with genuine warmth and a tired smile. Ben found himself going increasingly far beyond his normal professional obligations. He rearranged his own demanding schedule constantly to personally oversee each one of her infusion treatments. He consulted tirelessly with specialists across the country, researching every possible angle related to her specific case. He even quietly arranged for transportation for her through a volunteer service when she became too weak to safely drive herself to and from her frequent appointments. His colleagues inevitably began to notice. You're spending an awful lot of time on the Hayes case. Ben, Dr. Davies, the pragmatic head of oncology, remarked casually one evening as they were reviewing patient files together in his office. Any particular reason? Ben kept his expression carefully neutral. She's responding surprisingly well to the clinical trial protocol. James, the data could prove valuable for our ongoing research. Dr. Davies hummed non-committally, clearly unconvinced. And the fact that she's now essentially a non-paying patient with no insurance coverage doesn't concern you? So, the financial department had escalated the issue. Ben had been expecting this. Cancer doesn't check bank accounts before it strikes. James, he replied evenly. Her financial situation changed drastically after her diagnosis. We can't just abandon her treatment now because of that. No one's suggesting abandoning her. Ben, Dr. Davies countered reasonably, raising his eyebrows slightly. But the level of personal attention you're dedicating to this one particular case is unusual, especially given our department's current overwhelming caseload. Ben met his superior's gaze steadily. I'll make absolutely certain all my other patients continue to receive the appropriate, high-quality care they deserve. The Hayes case won't negatively impact that. I promise you. Dr. Davy studied him intently for a long moment, then finally shrugged, letting it go for now. Your call. Ben, just remember, we're doctors, not saints. You can't save everyone, no matter how hard you try. But as Ben left the chief's office later that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that in Olivia's specific case, he had to try, not just because she inherently deserved it, though she undeniably did, but because of that persistent, inexplicable connection he could feel so strongly. It still couldn't logically explain, a thread that seemed to have been mysteriously woven between their two lives long before they'd ever actually met. 3 months after Ethan's sudden disappearance, Olivia sat across from Ben in his quiet office, clutching a large manila envelope tightly in her lap. Her hands shook slightly as she placed it carefully on his desk. Divorce papers, she stated flatly, her voice devoid of inflection. Apparently, he's currently residing somewhere in Switzerland. His lawyer informed mine that he's transferred all our assets to various offshore accounts, purely for business purposes. Of course, there's really no point in fighting it. I simply don't have the energy or the money. Ben took the thick envelope, feeling a fresh surge of anger flare again towards the man who could so coldly, callously discard his wife precisely when she needed him the absolute most. There's more, Olivia continued, her voice steady now despite the raw pain still clearly evident in her tired eyes. I've lost the house. The bank is foreclosing next week. I've applied for subsidized housing. But naturally, there's a long waiting list. Sarah Jenkins has been amazing, helping me navigate all the applications for assistance. But she trailed off, gazing blankly out the window at the familiar Boston skyline. I never thought I'd be potentially homeless and divorced at 35, with advanced cancer. No less. It's like winning some kind of terrible, cosmic lottery. Despite everything, she managed a small, wry smile that twisted Ben's heart painfully. You're not going to be homeless, he stated decisively, the words leaving his mouth before he'd even consciously formed the thought. Olivia looked over at him, confusion immediately crossing her features. What do you mean? Ben hadn't planned to make this offer. In fact, the idea had only just crystallized in his mind that very second. But as soon as the words were out, he knew instinctively, with absolute certainty, that it was the right thing to do. I have a property, he explained quickly. A small, separate guest house located behind my main home. It's fully furnished, self-contained, and it's just sitting empty right now. You could stay there, Olivia, during your treatment. Olivia's eyes widened in disbelief. Dr. Carter, Ben, I couldn't possibly. You can? He interrupted gently but firmly. And honestly, I think you should. It's very close to the hospital, which means significantly less travel time for your frequent treatments. It's quiet and peaceful, perfect for resting and recovery between your chemo sessions. And, he added honestly, it would give me considerable peace of mind, knowing you have stable, safe housing during this absolutely critical phase of your treatment. But why would you do this? She asked again, her voice barely above a whisper now. You hardly even know me. Really? Ben hesitated, then decided to offer her at least a piece of the complex truth. My mother, he began slowly, had pancreatic cancer too, diagnosed when I was still in medical school. It's actually the primary reason I chose to specialize in oncology. He paused, unexpected memories washing over him intensely. She was wanting to help. It wasn't the whole story, not by a long shot, but it was true as far as it went. And right now, perhaps it was enough. Olivia studied his face intently, seeming to search his eyes for any hidden motives. Any ulterior agenda? Finding none apparent, she finally nodded slowly. Okay. She agreed hesitantly. Just until I can find something else. And I absolutely insist on paying you rent as soon as I'm able. We can certainly discuss that later, Ben replied, relief flooding through him unexpectedly. For now, let's just focus on your treatment. Okay. As Olivia left his office a few minutes later, Ben sat back heavily in his chair, momentarily wondering at the strange, unforeseen path his life had suddenly taken. 6 months ago, he couldn't possibly have imagined inviting a patient, even one he felt a connection to stay in his guest house, or feeling such an intense, personal investment in a single case. Yet, here he was, undeniably crossing professional boundaries that he had always meticulously respected throughout his career. But deep in his heart, he knew with unwavering certainty that this wasn't just about being a good doctor anymore. There was something more profound at work here. Some invisible connection that had been mysteriously set in motion long before Olivia Hayes ever collapsed in that restaurant. He just hadn't managed to put all the intricate pieces together yet. The guest house nestled behind Ben's stately colonial home was small but undeniably charming, featuring large windows that filled the cozy space with abundant natural light and overlooked a meticulously maintained, mature garden. Ben had prepared it carefully for Olivia's arrival, stocking the small kitchen with nourishing, easy-to-prepare foods, placing a vase of fresh flowers on the little dining table, and ensuring every possible comfort was considered. As he helped Olivia carry in her meager belongings, truly all she had left after reluctantly selling most of her furniture and possessions to pay off outstanding bills, he watched her face light up immediately as she took in the stunning garden clearly visible through the large picture windows. "Oh, Ben, it's beautiful," she breathed softly, moving instinctively towards the glass doors that led out onto a weathered stone patio. "Those are rare Japanese maples, aren't they? And the intricate stonework on that pathway. It's simply exquisite." Ben smiled, genuinely pleased by her obvious professional appreciation. "The garden was already here when I bought the place a few years ago. I've tried my best to maintain it, but I'm afraid I don't really possess much of a green thumb." "Well, you've done a truly remarkable job," Olivia stated sincerely, her experienced designers evaluating the layout and structure. The underlying structure, the bones of it, are still absolutely perfect. Someone designed this space with real vision. Perhaps when you're feeling stronger, you could advise me on it a bit," Ben suggested hopefully. "From what you've told me about your own work, you must have quite the talent." A shadow briefly crossed Olivia's face. "My work, it seems like another lifetime ago now. I had to cancel all my contracts when I got sick. My professional reputation in the design industry is probably ruined. Reputations can be rebuilt." "Olivia," Ben countered gently but firmly. "First, we focus all our energy on getting you well." Olivia turned away from the window then, her expression suddenly vulnerable. "Fragile. What if I don't get well? Ben, what if all this effort, is just delaying the inevitable?" The question hung heavy and unanswered in the quiet, sunlit room between them. The one question that all cancer patients eventually ask themselves, eventually ask their doctors. The one question that even the most experienced, compassionate oncologists never found easy or simple to answer. Cancer treatment isn't just about cure rates. "Olivia," Ben said finally, choosing his words carefully. "It's about giving your body the absolute best possible chance to fight back. And from everything I've seen of you so far, Olivia, you are definitely a fighter." She looked doubtful, unconvinced. "Am I? I didn't fight back when Ethan left. I just crumbled." "You were in profound shock," Ben countered immediately. "And yet, here you are now, bravely continuing intensive treatment. moving forward despite immense obstacles. That is courage. Olivia. Make no mistake. Olivia didn't look entirely convinced, but she nodded slowly, turning back to unpack the few belongings she still possessed. Ben left her then to settle in, returning to his own house next door with a strange, pervasive feeling of rightness, as if a crucial piece that had long been missing from the puzzle of his own life had finally, unexpectedly clicked perfectly into place. The next morning, Ben woke early and looked out his kitchen window to find Olivia already sitting peacefully in the garden on a weathered stone bench, wrapped tightly in a thick blanket despite the growing warmth of the early summer morning. A persistent side effect of her ongoing treatment was experiencing constant chills, regardless of the actual temperature. She looked small and incredibly fragile bathed in the soft morning light, but there was a palpable peacefulness to her posture that he hadn't witnessed before. "Good morning," he called softly as he stepped out onto his own patio, not wanting to startle her. She turned at the sound of his voice, a genuine smile lighting her tired face. "Good morning, Ben. Hope you don't mind me exploring already. I couldn't sleep in the garden. It was just calling to me." "Not at all. It's your space too now." "Olivia." He hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Would you like some tea? I was just about to make some for myself." "Oh, that would be lovely. Thank you." As Ben carefully prepared the tea back in his kitchen, he found himself moving with unusual, almost meticulous care, selecting his best porcelain cups, arranging everything perfectly on a silver tray with a precision that made him smile inwardly at himself. When was the last time he had taken such deliberate care with a simple, everyday act like serving tea? It felt good, strangely comforting, this small, quiet ritual of caregiving conducted entirely outside the sterile clinical setting of the hospital. They sat together companionably in the awakening garden, the morning sun gradually warming the air around them as birds called cheerfully from the branches of the old trees overhead. For a long while, they simply enjoyed the quiet, peaceful companionship, sipping their hot tea slowly and watching the mesmerizing play of light filtering down through the dense leaves. "This garden, it reminds me so much of one I designed years and years ago," Olivia said eventually, breaking the comfortable silence, her voice soft, almost dreamy. For a woman who also had cancer, actually, she wanted a special place where she could find some peace during her own difficult treatment. "I created something very similar to this, distinct places offering both sun and shade, protected little seating areas sheltered from windy days, carefully chosen plants that would offer something beautiful to look at in every single season." Ben's heart quickened suddenly in his chest. Do you happen to remember where that garden was? Or the woman's name? Perhaps? Olivia shook her head slowly. "It was one of my very first big independent commissions. Probably 7 or 8 years ago now. Somewhere over in Cambridge. I think. The client was actually a referral from another designer, and I only met with her in person a few times. Her health was already declining quite rapidly when I designed the garden." Ben nodded, trying desperately to keep his expression carefully neutral despite the sudden, powerful surge of emotion recognition. Awe, disbelief he felt rising within him. Could it possibly be? The timing would be exactly right. The location too. But he needed to be absolutely certain before he dared to say anything. "It's strange," Olivia continued thoughtfully, completely unaware of his internal turmoil. "I've designed dozens, maybe hundreds, of gardens since then. But that particular one, it always stayed with me somehow. The woman, she said something to me once that I've never forgotten." She paused, her gaze distant. She said that in creating that garden for her, I wasn't just planting flowers. She said I was planting hope. That even if she didn't live long enough to see everything bloom herself, she found immense comfort just knowing that it would bloom eventually for others to enjoy after she was gone. Ben's throat tightened painfully. Those words, they were so incredibly familiar, almost exactly as he remembered his own mother saying them. That's beautiful," he managed to say, his voice slightly husky. Olivia smiled wistfully. "I've often wondered over the years if that garden is still there, if someone is still tending it. I really hope so. I'm sure it is," Ben stated, his voice steadier now, filled with a certainty that surprised even himself. Something created with such obvious care, such profound understanding. It would undoubtedly leave its mark. He wanted to tell her then and there, to finally reveal the astonishing connection that he now felt almost completely certain of. But something intangible held him back. Olivia was still so fragile right now, physically and emotionally drained. Was this truly the right time to add another potentially overwhelming emotional revelation to her already heavy burden? No, he decided quickly. Better to wait. To be absolutely, unequivocally certain. To choose the right moment carefully. For now, it was enough just to know that the invisible threads connecting their lives might be even stronger, even more intricately woven than he had ever dared to imagine. As the weeks turned into months, Olivia's condition unfortunately worsened again. The experimental clinical trial treatment was undeniably brutal, designed specifically to attack the aggressive cancer with full force, but it was simultaneously taking a heavy, unavoidable toll on her already weakened body. There were increasingly frequent days when she couldn't even leave her bed in the guest house, when even a short, familiar walk out into the beloved garden seemed like an insurmountable, impossible task. On those difficult days, Ben brought the garden to her, cutting fragrant flowers to place gently by her bedside, taking photographs on his phone of new, unexpected blooms to show her later, quietly opening the windows just enough so the sweet scents of jasmine and rose could drift softly inside. And when she was strong enough to sit outside for a little while, he made absolutely sure she was comfortable and warm, bringing out soft pillows and cozy blankets, transforming the garden into a true sanctuary for her ongoing healing process. But ultimately, it wasn't enough. 6 long months into the intensive treatment regimen, new scans showed the cancer continuing its relentless spread, despite their very best efforts. The clinical trial simply wasn't working as effectively as they had desperately hoped it would. Ben sat alone in his hospital office late one night, reviewing Olivia's latest disheartening results with a growing sense of desperation churning in his gut. There had to be something else they could try, some other innovative approach they hadn't yet considered. A sharp knock at his open door startled him. It was Dr. Davies. "You're here late, Ben," the older doctor observed quietly, stepping into the office. His experienced eyes immediately fell on the troubling scans displayed prominently on Ben's computer screen, still obsessing over the Hayes case. "I see." Ben didn't bother denying it. "The trial protocol isn't working. James, I need to find an alternative. Fast." Dr. Davies sighed heavily, taking the seat across from Ben's cluttered desk. "Look, Ben, I know you've become personally invested in this particular patient, more so than usual, but you need to be realistic now. We're talking about stage 4 pancreatic cancer that's clearly not responding adequately to our most advanced treatment protocols available. You know what that usually means? It means we try something else," Ben stated firmly, his jaw set stubbornly. Dr. Davies' voice softened slightly. "The hospital board is starting to ask difficult questions, Ben. Questions about the significant resources being allocated to a non-paying patient. Questions about the extraordinary measures currently being taken for this one specific case, when we have hundreds of other equally deserving patients waiting for care. So it just comes down to money, Ben?" Ben asked bitterly, the implication clear. "It comes down to reality, Ben." Dr. Davies countered patiently. "Resources are finite. difficult. Sometimes heartbreaking choices inevitably have to be made. And frankly, I'm becoming concerned about you professionally and personally. You've undeniably crossed some significant lines with this patient. What lines? Ben interrupted defensively, his voice sharp now. She's living on your property? Ben, you've personally covered substantial costs for certain treatments not explicitly approved by her, now non-existent, insurance. You're demonstrably spending more time on her case than on all your other assigned patients combined. These aren't just professional boundaries you're crossing anymore. My friend, they're potentially ethical ones as well. Ben stood up abruptly, anger flaring within him again. There is absolutely nothing unethical about ensuring a critically ill patient receives proper, necessary care. At what cost? Ben? Dr. Davies asked quietly, his gaze steady. To the hospital's budget? To your other patients who also need your attention? To yourself? When was the last time you took a genuine day off? When was the last time you actually slept through the entire night without checking your phone for updates on her condition? The pointed questions hit home because Ben knew they were undeniably fair. He had become consumed by Olivia's case, completely rearranging his entire life around her intensive care. But how could he possibly explain to Dr. Davies what he could barely articulate even to himself? That helping Olivia somehow felt like fulfilling a sacred, unspoken promise made long ago, that her life had become mysteriously but inextricably linked with his own in a way that defied logical explanation. I appreciate your concern, James, Ben stated finally, his voice carefully controlled now. But I am not abandoning this patient. Dr. Davies studied him intently for another long moment, then finally nodded slowly. The board is officially meeting tomorrow afternoon to discuss overall resource allocation for the next fiscal quarter. They are specifically reviewing the Hayes case due to the mounting costs. I strongly suggest you prepare your arguments thoroughly. He paused at the doorway, turning back. And Ben, if you truly can't separate your personal feelings from your professional judgment in this instance, you might seriously want to consider transferring her case to another competent oncologist within the department. After Dr. Davies left, Ben sat motionless at his desk for a long time, the immense weight of the situation settling heavily over him. The purely professional, logical part of him knew Dr. Davies was absolutely right. He had become too involved, had crossed lines that doctors were rigorously trained, for good reason, to maintain. But another part of him, a deeper, more instinctive part, knew with absolute certainty that he couldn't possibly step away from Olivia's case now. Not just because of the profound connection he suspected but still hadn't definitively confirmed, but because in the difficult months since she'd moved into his guest house, as he'd watched her face this devastating illness with such quiet, unwavering courage, as they'd shared countless early morning teas together in the tranquil garden and engaged in long, late-night conversations whenever pain kept her awake. He'd simply come to care for her deeply, in a way that completely transcended the traditional boundaries of doctor and patient, in a way he'd never expected, never saw it, but now couldn't possibly deny. Ben picked up his phone and finally made a call he'd been deliberately avoiding for months. Dad? It's Ben. I need a favor. The next day, the hospital board met as scheduled. Ben wasn't invited to attend, but he didn't need to be. By mid-afternoon, Dr. Davies appeared again at his office door, his expression an intriguing mixture of disbelief and grudging resignation. Well, Ben, he began without preamble. Whatever powerful strings you pulled, they certainly worked. The board has officially approved continued treatment for Olivia Hayes. Indefinitely. Apparently, all potential future costs will be covered by a substantial, anonymous donation made specifically to the hospital's oncology research fund. Ben simply nodded, immense relief washing over him. Thank you for letting me know. James. Dr. Davies didn't leave immediately. It was your father, wasn't it? He surmised shrewdly. The Carter Family Foundation making a remarkably timely, unrestricted donation that just happens to perfectly cover all potential future costs for one specific, high-profile patient. Ben didn't answer directly. The donation will ultimately benefit many patients. James, not just Olivia. That's not exactly a denial. Dr. Davies observed wryly, shaking his head slightly. You know, Ben, when you first joined this department years ago, you were absolutely adamant about making your own way, about never using your family's considerable influence or money. What changed? What indeed? Ben had spent his entire professional career intentionally distancing himself from his family's immense wealth and powerful connections, fiercely determined to succeed solely on his own merits. Utilizing his father's vast resources now felt undeniably like a compromise of those deeply held principles. And yet, faced with the stark alternative, the unbearable thought of watching Olivia be denied the potentially life-saving care she desperately needed, it felt like there was no real choice at all. Sometimes, he said simply, we have to reevaluate our priorities. Dr. Davies looked like he wanted to say more, perhaps offer a warning. But instead, he just nodded again. Well, your patient gets her continued treatment. I sincerely hope, for your sake, Ben, that it's worth the compromise. After Dr. Davies left, Ben sat alone again at his desk, turning their loaded conversation over and over in his mind. Was it worth it? Using the very family connections he'd spent years actively avoiding, potentially risking his hard-earned professional reputation, consciously crossing ethical boundaries he'd always respected? The answer came immediately, without a shred of hesitation. Yes. For Olivia. Yes. Later that same evening, Ben found Olivia sitting quietly in the garden, wrapped snugly in blankets despite the lingering warmth of the late summer evening. Her face was still gaunt, her body undeniably frail, but her eyes lit up instantly with genuine warmth when she saw him approach a reaction that never failed to lift his own spirits. No matter how challenging the day had been. You look pleased with yourself, she observed perceptively as he sat down beside her on the stone bench. Good news about your treatment, he replied, unable to keep the excitement entirely out of his voice. We've been officially approved to try a new approach, a custom-designed, targeted therapy based specifically on your tumor's unique genetic profile. Olivia looked skeptical. I thought those kinds of personalized treatments were still highly experimental and prohibitively expensive. They are, Ben acknowledged readily. But you're an ideal candidate based on your latest genomic sequencing, Olivia. And, as it happens, the hospital just received significant new funding specifically earmarked for cutting-edge research treatments exactly like this. She studied his face intently for a long moment, and he had the distinct, uncomfortable feeling she could see right through his carefully constructed explanation. Just like that, she questioned softly. After months of battling insurance companies just for basic coverage, suddenly money is no object? Ben shrugged, trying to appear casual, nonchalant. Research grants come through unexpectedly sometimes. Foundations make generous donations. Occasionally, the system actually works the way it's supposed to. Ben, Olivia said quietly, her gaze unwavering. What did you do? He met her searching eyes, seeing the mixture of concern and profound gratitude reflected there. What any doctor would do for a patient they truly believe in. Olivia, I found a way to continue your treatment. She didn't look entirely convinced, but thankfully, she didn't press the issue further. Instead, she changed the subject slightly. I found something today, she murmured, when I was feeling well enough to walk around the garden earlier. She reached carefully into the pocket of her sweater and pulled out a small, weathered stone marker, half hidden by accumulated moss. It was tucked away back behind the big Japanese maple. Ben's breath caught sharply in his throat as she gently handed him the small stone. Carefully carved into its aged surface was a simple, poignant inscription for Eleanor Carter, who found peace in this garden. 2014 to 2015. Eleanor Carter. Olivia read softly. Any relation to you? Ben stared down at the familiar stone marker, memories flooding back with unexpected intensity. My mother, he confirmed, his voice barely audible now. This was her garden. Understanding dawned slowly, beautifully, on Olivia's face. Your mother? Was she the woman with cancer? The one I designed this garden for all those years ago? Ben nodded, finally ready, finally able to share the full truth he'd been holding back for so long. I recognized your name the moment I heard Ethan say it in a restaurant that night. Eleanor Carter's Garden of Hope. That's what she always called this place. She talked about you often. Olivia, the talented young designer who somehow understood exactly what she needed, what she craved. Olivia's eyes filled instantly with tears. I remember her now. She was so kind, so specific about what she wanted. Plants that would attract butterflies. Little hidden places to sit in both sun and shade. A perfect view from her bedroom window. She looked around the familiar garden now with entirely new, astonished eyes. This garden. I created this garden. Yes. Ben confirmed simply, and it gave her more peace, more genuine solace in her final difficult months than anything else possibly could have. She would sit out here for hours every day, even when she eventually became too weak to walk. Even in the dead of winter, we'd bundle her up, just like you are right now. He smiled sadly at the bittersweet memory, even as his own eyes grew damp. She always said it made her feel truly alive, even when everything else around her was solely about death. But I don't understand, Olivia said, gently wiping away her own tears with trembling fingers. If this was your mother's house, her special garden, why didn't you tell me sooner? When we first realized the possible connection, Ben took a deep breath. Because it's complicated. My parents separated when I was away in college. My father, well, he's quite wealthy. Comes from an old, established Boston family. He bought this house specifically for my mother when she received her diagnosis. Primarily, so she could be close to her treatment team at Boston Memorial. After she passed away, he wanted to sell it immediately, but I couldn't bear the thought of strangers living here, potentially changing her beloved garden. So, I bought it from him myself. He paused, then added quietly, I've deliberately kept my connection to the Carter family name very quiet professionally. I always wanted to make my own way in medicine, not trade on the family name or money. Only a few key people at the hospital even know about the connection. And now, Olivia asked perceptively, for my treatment. Ben met her gaze directly, holding it. Now, I've finally made my peace with using whatever resources are available, including my family's, if necessary, to give you the absolute best possible chance. Olivia was silent for a long moment, processing this profound, unexpected revelation. Finally, she reached out slowly and took his hand, the first time she had ever initiated physical contact between them. Thank you, she whispered simply, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you, Ben, for everything, for being the one person who didn't walk away. In the fading afternoon light of the garden his mother had loved, the garden she had unknowingly designed, with her hand held warmly, trustingly in his, Ben felt an overwhelming sense of completion, as if disparate pieces of a complex puzzle he hadn't even known he was solving had finally, miraculously clicked perfectly into place. Two lives, intricately connected by garden, by a shared illness, by the invisible, often inexplicable threads of fate that sometimes lead us exactly where we need to be, precisely when we need to be there. even if we don't recognize the path or the destination at first. I couldn't walk away, he said softly, his voice filled with conviction. Not from you. The simple words hung in the quiet air between them, carrying far more weight, far more meaning, than perhaps either of them was fully ready to acknowledge just yet. But they were undeniably true. And for now, that was enough. Autumn arrived, painting Eleanor Carter's cherished garden in breathtakingly fiery colors that Olivia watched change gradually from her guest house window. Day by day, the new, personalized treatment protocol had thankfully stabilized her condition significantly. Not a remission yet, not by clinical definition, but at least the aggressive cancer wasn't advancing as rapidly as before. It was enough progress to give her more good days among the bad days. Precious hours of clarity interspersed between the persistent fog of pain medications and lingering fatigue. On one such good day in mid-October, Olivia sat at the small desk in the guest house. Writing thoughtfully in the leather-bound journal Ben had given her a private place to record her complex thoughts, her persistent fears, her fragile, burgeoning hopes. The daily practice had become unexpectedly therapeutic for her, a quiet way to process the immense emotional turmoil of the past tumultuous year. A soft knock at the door interrupted her writing. Ben stood there, his expression unusually hesitant for him. "Am I disturbing you?" he asked quietly. "Not all." Olivia smiled warmly, quickly closing the journal. "Come on in." He entered, carrying a worn, aged, leather-bound book carefully in his hands. "I've been meaning to show you something for a while now," he began, sitting down beside her at the small dining table. "But I wanted to wait until you were feeling a bit stronger." Olivia's curiosity was immediately piqued. "What is it?" Ben gently placed the old book on the table between them. "My mother's journal," he explained softly. She kept it religiously during her illness, especially during the last year of her life. Olivia's hand hovered tentatively over the journal's cover, not quite touching it yet. "Are you sure you want to share something so incredibly personal with me?" Ben nodded firmly. "There are entries in here about the garden, and about you. I thought you might want to read them." With gentle reverence, Olivia carefully opened the journal to the pages Ben had marked discreetly with a faded silk ribbon. The handwriting inside was elegant, graceful, but clearly showed signs of physical weakness. Some words trailed off faintly, while others seemed pressed harder into the paper, as if the writer had needed to concentrate intensely just to form each individual letter. April 15th, 2014. The garden angel came today. That's what I've decided to call her. Olivia Hayes, landscape designer extraordinaire, though she's far too modest to ever claim such a grand title. Young, probably only in her early 20s then, with such kind, perceptive eyes and a quiet, unassuming confidence that immediately put me completely at ease. When I tried to explain what I wanted, not just a garden, really, but a sanctuary, a final refuge, she understood instantly, intuitively. She asked questions no other designer had even thought to ask. Not just practical questions about plants and sunlight exposure, but deeper questions about how I wanted to feel in the space. Did I crave solitude or need room for visitors? Did I prefer sun or shade? Gentle sitting areas or meandering walking paths? What specific colors brought me joy? She listened with such focused attention, such genuine care. For the first time since my diagnosis, I actually felt seen, not just as a patient number, not as a dying woman defined by her illness, but as a person with unique desires and tastes that still mattered. Daniel, likely her husband. Ben's father, thinks I'm spending far too much of my settlement money on this garden project. Perhaps I am. But what good is money, really, when time is the only currency that truly matters now? I want to create something beautiful, something lasting, something that will remain long after I am gone. Olivia looked up from a page, her eyes damp with emotion. She called me the garden angel. Ben smiled softly. Keep reading. There's more. June 30th, 2014. The garden progresses slowly, beautifully, despite my own declining health. Olivia comes by regularly to oversee the work, always somehow finding extra time to sit with me, share a cup of tea, tell me fascinating stories about each specific plant she has selected for the space. Today was a particularly bad day, the pain almost unbearable at times. But she brought photographs of the Japanese maples being planted, their delicate leaves like tiny green hands reaching hopefully towards the sky. We sat together quietly in my bedroom. The window opened just enough to catch the earthy sense of fresh soil and new plantings drifting in on the breeze. She described in vivid detail how the space would transform gradually through the changing seasons, promising me that even in the depths of winter, there would still be unexpected beauty to discover here. Gardens are never truly finished. She told me wisely today. They're always becoming. Like people, I suppose. Even now, even dying, I realize I'm still becoming something new. Ben visited today as well. My serious, dedicated son, so intensely focused on his demanding medical studies that he barely remembers to eat sometimes. He disapproves of the garden expenditure too. I can tell, though he's far too kind to say so directly. He thinks I should be focusing all my energy on the next clinical trial, the next potential treatment. He doesn't yet understand, perhaps cannot understand yet, that at some point, the quality of life begins to matter far more than its mere length. I wish he could meet Olivia. Two healers, really one of bodies, the other of spaces. I feel they would have so much to teach each other. Olivia paused again in her reading, looking up at Ben with sheer wonder in her eyes. She wanted us to meet. It seems the universe eventually had the same idea. Ben acknowledged quietly. Olivia turned the fragile page, continuing to read the elegant script. September 18th, 2014. The garden is nearly complete now. And just in time, it seems. My doctors say weeks now, not months. But then again, I've surprised them before. Olivia helped me walk the winding paths today, my first real tour of the completed space. Every single detail is absolutely perfect. The smooth stone bench positioned precisely to catch the warm morning light. The delicate wind chimes that sing sweetly with the slightest breeze. The shallow bird bath that has already attracted a charming family of cardinals. We sat together for a long time by the small, serene pond, watching the koi fish flash brilliant orange and white beneath the floating lily pads. This is where you'll find me, I told her softly. After I'm gone, if you ever happen to come back to visit this garden, this is where my spirit will linger. She cried then. This strong, capable young woman who has poured so much care, so much empathy, into creating my final sanctuary. I think she understands, perhaps better than even my own family, what the space truly means to me. Not just a garden, but a legacy. A living piece of myself that will continue to grow and bloom long after I've returned to the earth. There's a rare flowering tree I've asked her specifically to include. A Franklinia elatima, nearly extinct in the wild now. It blooms late in the summer, she tells me, with beautiful white flowers resembling camellias. I likely won't live to see it bloom myself, but I love simply knowing it will be here, surprising future visitors with its unexpected beauty. I must remember to tell Ben about it, to ask him specifically to watch for its very first blooming, to remember me then, not with sadness, but with joy. Olivia closed the journal gently, tears flowing freely, unheated down her cheeks now. The Franklinia, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. I remember ordering it specifically for her. It was the very last plant installed. She looked up at Ben, her eyes questioning. Did it survive? I don't recall seeing it out in the garden now. Ben's expression grew pained. It died the winter after she did. I tried desperately to save it, But he shrugged helplessly. As I mentioned before, I really don't have her green thumb. Or yours. They're notoriously difficult trees to establish. Olivia murmured thoughtfully, but incredibly beautiful when they finally thrive. She traced the worn leather cover of the journal reverently with her fingertips. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. Ben, your mother, she was truly a remarkable woman. Ben agreed softly, and she was absolutely right about you. Olivia, the garden you created for her, it gave her profound peace when almost nothing else could. Olivia was quiet for a long moment, absorbing the full weight, the sheer improbability of the profound connection that had just been revealed between them. Finally, she asked the question that had been slowly forming in her mind since she began reading the journal entries. Is that why? Is that why you've done so much for me? Because of your mother? Because of the garden? Ben considered the question carefully before answering. At first, perhaps. Subconsciously, maybe. When I heard your name spoken in the restaurant that night, it was truly like a bolt of recognition out of the blue. My mother had talked about you so often. Olivia had been so deeply moved by your kindness, your unique understanding of her needs. And then, to see you there, all those years later, facing the exact same devastating disease that ultimately took her. He shook his head slowly, still amazed by the sheer coincidence. The serendipity of it all. It just felt like something incredibly important, something I simply couldn't ignore. Fate, Olivia murmured softly. Maybe, Ben acknowledged with a small smile. Or perhaps just a remarkable coincidence that gave me the unexpected chance to help the very person who had once helped my mother so profoundly when she needed it most. But it's become more than that now, hasn't it? Olivia asked perceptively, her gaze searching his. More than just repaying an old debt or somehow honoring your mother's memory. Ben met her gaze directly, holding it, letting her see the truth in his eyes. Yes, he confirmed simply, his voice low but certain. Much more. The quiet admission hung palpably in the air between them. Neither a grand declaration nor a binding promise, but a clear, mutual acknowledgement of the deeper, undeniable connection that had organically formed between them over many months of shared struggles, quiet conversations, and a steadily growing, profound understanding. Olivia broke the charged silence first. I should probably rest for a bit before my appointment this afternoon. It was a graceful, necessary step back from the emotional precipice they had just cautiously approached together. Ben nodded, carefully taking the precious journal from her and standing up to leave. At the door, however, he turned back. There's one more thing. Olivia, on my mother's birthday next week, I was planning to plant a new Franklinia tree out in the garden. In her memory, I thought, well, if you're feeling up to it, perhaps you might help me choose the right spot? Olivia smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes, still a rare, precious occurrence these days. I like that very much. Ben, as Ben left the guest house, Olivia returned thoughtfully to her own journal, her pen suddenly moving with renewed purpose and energy across the waiting page. Today had undeniably brought a stunning revelation, a crucial missing piece to the complex puzzle of why their paths had crossed so unexpectedly. But it had also brought something else entirely, a tiny, flickering spark of genuine hope she'd thought long extinguished within her. A powerful reminder that even in the absolute darkest of circumstances, new beginnings were always, somehow, miraculously possible. A week later, Ben and Olivia stood together in the garden. The slender, promising sapling of the Franklinia, a Latamaha, resting carefully between them. The autumn day was crisp but sunny, absolutely perfect weather for planting. Olivia, drawing on her years of expertise, had helped Ben select the ideal location, a sheltered spot offering gentle morning sun and welcome afternoon shade. Clearly visible from both the main house and the guesthouse windows. Now, as Ben carefully dug the appropriately sized hole, Olivia leaned lightly on her cane, expertly directing the necessary depth and width with professional precision. A little deeper, she instructed softly. These trees really like having plenty of room for their roots to spread out properly. Ben complied willingly, digging until she finally nodded her approval. Together, with Ben doing the heavy lifting while Olivia carefully guided the placement, they settled the young tree gently into its new home, filled in the rich soil around the delicate roots, and watered it thoroughly. "My mother would be very pleased," Ben said quietly, stepping back to admire their collaborative work. Eleanor Carter's garden, being tended once again by the original designer. "It needs more than just a tree. You know," Olivia mused, her designers I already evaluating the surrounding space critically. Companion plantings are essential. Ones that complement its beauty but don't overwhelm it. Maybe some witch hazel nearby for winter interest? Some spring bulbs for early color? "Are you offering to redesign the entire garden now?" Ben asked, genuinely pleased to see her professional passion reigniting so visibly. "Not the entire garden, perhaps," Olivia clarified with a small smile. "Just updates. Refreshing what your mother and I originally started together." She glanced sideways at him then, her expression turning serious again. If I'm still around for spring planting. That is, it was the first time in weeks she had directly referenced the lingering uncertainty of her future, the stark reality that despite the recent stable scans, her long-term prognosis remained guarded. "Unpredictable. You will be," Ben stated firmly, his voice filled with conviction. "I have a very good feeling about this new targeted treatment protocol." Olivia gave him a look that was part skepticism, part amusement. "Is that your official medical opinion, Dr. Carter?" "Partly," he admitted with a slight grin. "But it's also," he hesitated for a moment, then decided to share the thought that had been forming. "My mother, she truly believed in science. She would definitely say this." He gestured between them, encompassing the garden, their shared history, us meeting again after all these years. The connection through her garden, even your positive response to the new treatment. She would say the universe was trying to tell us something. "And what would that be?" Olivia asked softly, her eyes searching his. "That your story isn't finished yet." "Olivia," Ben stated simply, holding her gaze, "that there are still more beautiful gardens for you to design, more profound beauty for you to create in this world." Something in his tone, the quiet intensity, made Olivia study his face even more closely. "You've always been so careful, Ben. Never wanted to give me false hope. What's changed?" Ben met her gaze directly, letting her see everything he felt. "Your latest blood work," he revealed finally. "The tumor markers, they've decreased significantly." "Olivia, for the very first time since we started any treatment at all, it's still too soon to definitively call it trend or talk about remission. But it's good news." Olivia finished softly for him, her voice steady despite the undeniable hope blooming brightly in her eyes now. "It's very good news," Ben confirmed, smiling warmly. The kind of news that makes planting trees for the future seem not just vaguely optimistic, but entirely appropriate. Olivia turned to look again at the slender Franklinia sapling, its few remaining leaves stirring gently in the crisp autumn breeze. A tree that's nearly extinct in the wild. She mused thoughtfully. Surviving against all the odds somehow seems fitting, doesn't it? Ben was about to respond when his cell phone suddenly rang, shattering the peaceful moment. He checked the caller ID and frowned. "Excuse me, Olivia, I need to take this." "It's the hospital." Olivia nodded, turning her attention back to the newly planted tree while Ben stepped a short distance away to take the call. But even as she carefully adjusted the mulch around the base of the fragile sapling, she could hear the distinct alarm rising sharply in his voice. When? How did he possibly find out where she's staying? A tense pause. No, absolutely not. She's not nearly well enough for visitors right now. Especially not him. Tell security immediately. Another, longer pause this time. I understand. Yes. Okay. I'll handle it personally. When Ben returned moments later, his expression was deeply troubled. Olivia knew immediately, instinctively, that something was seriously wrong. What is it? She asked, bracing herself. Ben hesitated, clearly reluctant to share the unwelcome news. Ethan is back in Boston. He showed up at the hospital this morning, demanding to see you. Olivia felt as if all the air had been forcefully sucked from her lungs. After nearly a full year of complete silence, after the brutal abandonment, the calculated financial devastation, the cold, impersonal divorce papers served without a single word of explanation. Now he wanted to see her? Why? Why? She managed to ask, her voice barely a whisper. He didn't say. Ben replied, his own voice tight now with barely controlled anger. Just that he'd somehow heard your condition had improved recently and that he wanted to speak with you urgently. How would he even know about my condition? That's exactly what I'd like to know, Ben stated grimly. Patient information is strictly confidential. Unless perhaps he still has access to your old insurance records somehow. Olivia shook her head slowly, confusion and a wave of nauseating anxiety washing over her. I just don't understand. Why now? What would he possibly want from me? You don't have to see him. Olivia, Ben stated firmly, his protective instincts flaring. After everything he did, you don't owe him anything. Not your time, not a conversation, absolutely nothing. But even as he spoke the words, Olivia knew, with a sudden, surprising clarity, that she would see Ethan. Not because she felt she owed him anything, certainly not forgiveness, but because she finally realized she owed herself closure. The deep wound of his abandonment had scarred over considerably in the past year, but it had never fully, completely healed. Perhaps confronting him directly, finally understanding his motives, was the only way to truly put the painful past behind her for good. I want to see him, she stated quietly, but decisively. Here, on my terms, not at the hospital, not somewhere public where he can make a scene. Right here. Ben looked like he wanted to argue, to protect her, but ultimately, he respected her decision. When? Tomorrow afternoon, Olivia replied firmly. Might as well get it over with. As they walked slowly back towards the guest house, Olivia found herself leaning more heavily on her cane than usual. The unexpected emotional shock of Ethan's sudden return was clearly manifesting physically, causing increased fatigue and muscle tension. Ben noticed immediately, instantly slowing his pace to match hers, his hand hovering near her elbow, ready to offer his arm if needed. Are you absolutely sure about this, Olivia? He asked gently again, his concern palpable. All this extra stress, it isn't good for your recovery process. Neither is unfinished business. Olivia countered quietly but resolutely. I need to face him. Ben, I need to try and understand why he left the way he did. And maybe, she paused, searching for the right words to express the complex thought forming. Maybe, to thank him. Thank him? Ben couldn't hide his utter shock this time. For abandoning you precisely when you needed him the most? For stealing your financial security? Leaving you destitute? Olivia stopped walking then, turning to face Ben fully on the garden path. If he hadn't left when he did, Ben, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't have rediscovered this incredible garden. I wouldn't have met you. Not properly. Anyway, a small, thoughtful smile touched her lips. Sometimes the very worst things that happen to us end up leading us to unexpected blessings in disguise. Ben stared at her, amazed once again by her remarkable capacity for wisdom and grace, even in the face of such profound adversity and betrayal. Without conscious thought, he reached out instinctively, gently tucking a stray strand of dark hair behind her ear. A simple gesture of tenderness that surprised them both with its easy intimacy. "You are truly extraordinary, Olivia Hayes," he murmured softly, his voice filled with admiration. "I sincerely hope he realizes someday exactly what he threw away." The moment hung, suspended between them, charged with unspoken feelings, with possibilities that neither was quite ready to fully acknowledge or define just yet. Then Olivia took a small step back, gently breaking the spell. "I should probably rest now," she said, her voice slightly unsteady. Tomorrow will likely be difficult." Ben nodded in understanding, watching as she made her way slowly towards the welcoming door of the guest house. He remained standing alone in the quiet garden for a long time afterwards, his gaze moving thoughtfully from the newly planted, hopeful Franklinian sapling to the small, weathered stone marker honoring his mother nearby. "What would you think of all this, Mom?" he whispered softly to the crisp autumn air. "Your garden angel, here in your garden again. The two of us, connected by invisible threads neither of us even understood until now." He sighed. "And tomorrow, the man who abandoned her is coming back into the picture." As if in answer, a sudden, cool breeze stirred the colorful leaves overhead, sending a vibrant shower of red and gold drifting down gently around him. Ben smiled faintly despite his lingering concerns. His mother would have undoubtedly called it a sign. Nature's quiet way of saying that perhaps everything was unfolding exactly as it should, even if the intricate pattern wasn't yet completely clear to human eyes. Tomorrow would certainly bring its own unique challenges, its own potential pain. But for tonight, it was enough simply to know that Olivia's latest test showed significant improvement, that they had planted a tree together, symbolizing hope for the future, and that whatever happened next, they would face it together, from the shared sanctuary of Eleanor Carter's garden, a place intentionally created for healing, for hope, for enduring peace. Ethan Thompson arrived at precisely 2 p.m. the next afternoon, driving a sleek, expensive European sports car that he parked with ostentatious, deliberate care in Ben's otherwise unassuming driveway. From the front window of the guest house, Olivia watched her ex-husband emerge smoothly from the low-slung vehicle, tanned, impeccably fit, expensively dressed, showing absolutely no outward sign that callously abandoning his dying wife nearly a year ago had caused him any significant distress or hardship whatsoever. Beside her, Ben stood protectively close, his posture tense. "Remember," he murmured quietly, "I'll be right outside in the garden. If you want to believe at any point, for any reason, just say the word." Olivia nodded, grateful beyond words for his steady, unwavering presence. She had spent the entire morning mentally preparing for this difficult meeting, not just physically choosing clothing that deliberately made her look less frail than she actually felt, but emotionally, steeling herself resolutely for whatever Ethan might say or do. "I'm ready," she stated firmly, more to convince herself than Ben. When the inevitable knock finally came at the door, Ben opened it. The two men regarded each other for a long moment with barely disguised, palpable hostility. "Dr. Carter," Ethan said smoothly, though faint recognition flickered briefly in his eyes. "The doctor from the restaurant, wasn't it? How providential that you've apparently been caring for my wife." "Ex-wife," Ben corrected him coldly, his tone leaving no room for misinterpretation. Ethan's charming smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yes, of course. A mere technicality I hope we can address today." He looked pointedly past Ben to where Olivia stood waiting just inside the doorway. "Olivia, you look Well, the blatant, dismissive lie hung heavy and awkward in the air between them. Olivia knew exactly how she looked, still thin, undeniably pale, with the unmistakable, lingering marks of aggressive cancer treatment clearly evident in her appearance. But she also knew, with a surge of quiet pride, that she looked far, far better than she had just a few months ago, when the relentless cancer and its brutal treatments had ravaged her body almost to the point where she barely recognized her own reflection in the mirror. "Ethan," she acknowledged simply, with a slight, cool nod. "Come in." Ben reluctantly stepped aside, allowing Ethan to enter the small guest house, then turned pointedly towards Olivia. "I'll be in the garden. Call out if you need me." Once they were finally alone, Ethan surveyed the cozy but modest guest house surroundings with obviously critical eyes. "So," he began, his tone laced with condescension, "this is where you've been living." He paused for effect. "Quite a step down from our beautiful home back in Beacon Hill. Wouldn't you say? Our home that you stopped paying the mortgage on, allowing it to go into foreclosure?" Olivia countered mildly, refusing pointedly to rise to his intended bait. Ethan actually had the grace to look momentarily uncomfortable. Financial decisions had to be made quickly. "Olivia, certain business opportunities arose that simply couldn't wait, like transferring all our joint assets into secret offshore accounts." Olivia took a seat deliberately at the small dining table, gesturing pointedly for Ethan to do the same. She was determined to conduct this long-overdue conversation on equal footing, refusing to allow him to physically tower over her, to intimidate her. Ethan sat, carefully arranging his handsome features into an expression of deep contrition that might have been convincing to someone who hadn't lived intimately with him for 5 long years. "I know how it must have looked, Olivia, leaving like that. But I swear, I have my reasons." "I'm sure you did," she replied evenly, her voice calm. "What I'd really like to know, Ethan, is why you're here now, after nearly a full year of complete, utter silence. Why the sudden, unexpected interest in my well-being?" Ethan leaned forward earnestly across the small table, his voice taking on that familiar, persuasive quality that Olivia now recognized instantly from his past business negotiations. "I heard your condition has improved significantly," he stated smoothly, "that you're responding remarkably well to some new, experimental treatment." "How exactly did you hear that, Ethan?" Olivia asked, genuinely curious now. "My specific medical information is supposed to be private." A flicker of something discomfort, guilt, crossed Ethan's face briefly. I've kept tabs on you. Naturally. From a distance. Of course. Made some discreet inquiries through contacts. I still care about you, Olivia. Deeply. You certainly have an interesting way of showing it," she observed dryly. "Most people who genuinely care don't typically empty joint bank accounts and disappear without a trace the moment their spouse receives a devastating cancer diagnosis." Ethan sighed dramatically, running a hand agitatedly through his perfectly styled hair. "I know it looked wrong, Olivia. Terribly wrong. I panicked. Okay. The thought of watching you suffer, watching you potentially die, I just couldn't handle it. But I've had a lot of time to think since then. Time to deeply regret my actions. I want to make amends now." "Amends?" Olivia repeated the word slowly, tasting its inadequacy on her tongue. "What exactly did you have in mind, Ethan?" He reached across the table again, attempting once more to take her hand in his. Olivia swiftly withdrew it before he could make contact. "I want us to try again. Liv," he urged, his voice low and intensely persuasive now. "The divorce. It isn't technically finalized yet. There's still time for us to withdraw the petition. We could start completely over. Do things right this time. I have a beautiful house secured in Switzerland now. Access to the absolute best medical facilities in all of Europe. You could continue your treatment there comfortably. Away from all this. He gestured vaguely, dismissively, at the modest but comfortable surroundings of the guest house. All this, Olivia prompted quietly. Ethan's expression hardened slightly, a hint of his true nature showing through. This, Charity, Olivia, living like this, in some doctor's backyard, accepting handouts from his wealthy family. It's beneath you. It's beneath us. Is it? She asked thoughtfully, considering his words. Funny. I've actually learned quite a lot this past year about what truly matters in life. About the fundamental difference between those people who stay and support you when times get incredibly hard, and those who simply cut and run. I made a mistake. Olivia, Ethan insisted vehemently. A terrible, regrettable mistake that I desperately want to rectify now. Isn't that what ultimately matters? That I'm here now. Wanting to help you. Want to take care of you? Olivia studied her ex-husband carefully across the small table. There was still something he wasn't saying, some hidden angle he wasn't revealing. Ethan had never made a single move in his life without meticulously calculating all the potential benefits to himself first. Why now? Ethan? She pressed again softly. What's really changed? He hesitated just fractionally too long, confirming Olivia's sharp instincts. Nothing's changed, he stated, perhaps a little too quickly this time. I just finally realized what really matters in life. Would it, perhaps, have anything to do with the ongoing federal investigation into your rather questionable business practices? Olivia asked quietly, dropping the bombshell calmly. The one that apparently started about 3 months ago, right after your former partner, David Chun, turned whistleblower? Ethan's face went completely slack with shock, his carefully crafted facade crumbling instantly. How? How did you? David came to see me a while back. Olivia explained calmly. He felt incredibly guilty about what had happened between us. About how you apparently used company funds to finance your abrupt departure last year. He wanted to make sure I was okay, financially stable, before he went to the authorities with what he knew. That backstabbing son of a... Ethan caught himself abruptly, forcefully smoothing his features back into a conciliatory, almost pleading expression. Olivia, David always had a thing for you. You know that. You can't possibly believe anything he says. I believe the extensive evidence he showed me. Olivia replied calmly. Unfazed. Bank transfer records. Falsified accounting logs. Clear evidence of tax evasion. It actually made for quite interesting reading. Ethan's facade cracked completely now. Raw anger flashing dangerously in his eyes. Is that what this is really about? Blackmail? You're trying to squeeze money out of me now, before the feds inevitably freeze all my accounts? Olivia couldn't help but laugh, then a genuine, if slightly bitter, sound. You actually think I want your money now? Ethan? After everything you did? Everyone wants something. Ethan retorted coldly, his true colors finally showing, including your devoted doctor friend out there in the garden. Do you honestly think he's helping you out of the sheer goodness of his heart? Do you have any idea who the Carters really are in Boston? Yes. Actually, I know exactly who they are, Olivia replied steadily. Ben has been completely, refreshingly honest with me about his family background. Ethan snorted derisively in disbelief. Oh, really? So he's told you all about the powerful Carter Family Foundation. Ben? About how his father practically controls half the major philanthropic boards in all of New England. About the millions they donate strategically to Boston Memorial Hospital every single year. He leaned forward again conspiratorially, his voice dropping to an insidious whisper. He's not helping you because he cares about you. Olivia, don't be naive. He's helping you because you're a perfect research subject. A potential feather in his cap for his own career advancement. A convenient charity case with a rare, aggressive cancer profile that could make his reputation internationally if he manages to publish the results successfully. Olivia felt a flash of pure, righteous anger, so intense it momentarily stole her breath away. How dare Ethan try to poison, to taint, the one pure, genuinely good thing that had emerged from the wreckage of her life, the unwavering care and profound support Ben had consistently shown her when everyone else, including the very man sitting across from her now, spewing venom, had completely abandoned her. I think you should leave now. Ethan, she stated quietly, her voice remarkably steady despite the powerful emotion churning violently inside her. Ethan looked genuinely taken aback, clearly not expecting this reaction. Olivia, listen to me. I'm just trying to help you see the truth here. You're vulnerable right now, easily manipulated by someone like him. The truth? Olivia interrupted sharply, her hard-won calm finally breaking completely. You want to talk about the truth? The truth is that you left me alone to face a death sentence with nothing but a callous 7-word note. The truth is that you stole everything we had supposedly built together over 5 years and ran away like a coward to save your own skin. The truth is that while you were off living it up comfortably in Switzerland, I was here, fighting for my life, completely alone, until Ben Carter miraculously came into the picture. She stood up abruptly then, surprising even herself with the unexpected strength surging through her voice, resonating in her posture. The truth. Ethan, she continued, her voice ringing with newfound conviction, is that I'm actually profoundly grateful to you now. Grateful that you left when you did, because it finally showed me exactly who you really are. And, more importantly, it opened the door for me to discover what real support, what genuine caring, what true partnership actually looks like. Ethan stared at her, momentarily speechless, clearly not having anticipated this defiant response. You're making a huge mistake. Olivia, he said finally, his voice low and menacing now. When Dr. Carter eventually gets whatever it is he really wants from you, data for his precious research papers, maybe a heartwarming sob story for his family foundation's annual fundraising report, whatever it is he'll move on to. Trust me, that's just what people like him always do. No, Ethan, Olivia corrected him softly, but with absolute certainty. That's what people like you do. She walked calmly to the door and opened it wide. A clear, unequivocal dismissal. Goodbye, Ethan. I sincerely wish you well with the upcoming federal investigation. And I truly hope, someday, you manage to find whatever it is you seem to be so desperately looking for. For a tense moment, Ethan looked like he might argue further, perhaps even try to force his way back into the conversation. Then his expression hardened completely, the mask of false contrition falling away entirely, replaced by cold fury. You'll regret this, he stated flatly, his voice devoid of any emotion now. When the treatment eventually stops working, when you find yourself really dying and completely alone again, you'll wish you'd taken my offer today. I'm not alone, Ethan, Olivia stated simply, the truth of it resonating deep within her soul. I haven't been truly alone since the day I first moved into this guest house, and I will never regret choosing authenticity over convenience, choosing honesty over lies. She held the door open wider. Please go now, as Ethan brushed past her without another word, his expensive cologne momentarily clogging the small space. Olivia felt an immense weight finally lifting completely from her shoulders, the final, lingering remnants of guilt, of self-doubt, of endlessly wondering if perhaps she could have done something differently back then to make him stay. In their place was only a clear, calm certainty. She was exactly where she needed to be. From a tranquil garden just outside, Ben watched Ethan's hasty, angry departure, the furious slam of the expensive car door, the unnecessarily aggressive spray of gravel as he accelerated rapidly down the long driveway. Only when the sleek sports car finally disappeared completely from view did Ben approach the guest house cautiously, concern still clearly etched on his features. He found Olivia standing quietly by the front window, looking out peacefully at the familiar garden, a strange, enigmatic smile playing gently at her lips. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, stepping inside. She turned towards him then, and to his profound relief, her eyes were clear, her expression remarkably peaceful. "I am," she confirmed, and for perhaps the very first time since he'd known her, she sounded completely, unequivocally certain. "Better than okay. Actually, what did he want?" Ben asked, needing to know. Olivia moved toward the small sofa, gesturing for Ben to join her. "Tout reconcile?" Supposedly, though I strongly suspect his sudden, newfound interest in my well-being probably has significantly more to do with the impending federal investigation into his rather shady business practices than any genuine concern for me. Ben's brow furrowed instantly. "Investigation? What investigation?" Olivia quickly explained everything she knew about David Chen's visit 3 months earlier, about the damning evidence of serious financial crimes he'd shared, about Ethan's likely, calculated motivation for suddenly seeking to renew their relationship now. He's undoubtedly hoping that staging a dramatic reconciliation with his supposedly dying wife will somehow look good to the prosecutors and judges involved in his case. Ben concluded grimly, palpable anger evident again in his voice. "That's utterly reprehensible. It's very Ethan," Olivia stated simply, with a resigned shrug. "Always calculating the angles. Always looking for leverage." She hesitated for a moment, then added casually, "He had quite a lot to say about you." "Actually." Ben tensed slightly. "About me?" About the Carter family. Your father's influence at the hospital. The foundation." Olivia watched his face carefully as she spoke. "He seems convinced you have ulterior motives for helping me." Ben's expression darkened immediately. Of course he would think that. He scoffed dismissively. People like Ethan simply can't conceive of actions that don't have some direct, tangible personal benefit attached. "And do you?" Olivia asked quietly, holding his gaze steadily. "Do you have ulterior motives, Ben?" Ben met her searching gaze directly, letting her see the raw honesty there. "If wanting you to survive against all the odds is considered an ulterior motive, then yes, Olivia, I suppose I do. If caring deeply about what happens to you, far beyond your statistical value as a patient, is an ulterior motive, then yes, absolutely." He leaned closer then, his voice intense, passionate. "But if he suggested for 1 second that I'm somehow using you for research data, or for some kind of twisted public relations benefit for my family, then he's merely projecting his own calculating, mercenary nature onto me." Olivia studied his face for another long moment, seeing the undeniable sincerity there, the genuine indignation flashing in his eyes at Ethan's vile suggestion. "I didn't believe him," she stated simply, decisively, not for a single moment. Relief washed visibly over Ben's features. I probably should have told you more about my family sooner. Olivia, it's just, I've spent my entire career consciously trying to distance myself from the Carter name, trying desperately to succeed purely on my own merits, using my father's connections and resources to ensure your treatment continued. Frankly, it felt like a significant compromise of those long-held principles. But, he added firmly, it was a compromise I'd make again in a heartbeat if faced with the same circumstances. "I know," Olivia murmured softly, "and I'm so incredibly grateful, Ben, not just for the continued treatment itself, but for," she gestured expressively around them, encompassing the cozy guest house, the beautiful garden visible through the windows. "For all of this, the safe home you've given me when I had nowhere else to go, the constant care and support that goes so far beyond what any doctor technically owes a patient. Something profound shifted in Ben's expression then. A long-held guardedness seemed to fall away completely, a decision being silently made. "You're right, Olivia," he admitted quietly. "It does go far beyond professional obligation now. Olivia, I need you to know something I've felt growing between us for a long time now, but haven't said aloud, because the timing never seemed quite right. Because your health absolutely had to be the top priority. Because I didn't want to complicate your recovery in any way." Olivia's heart quickened suddenly in her chest. "What is it, Ben?" He gently took her hand in his touch sending a warm current through her. His touch was gentle but sure. "I care for you, Olivia, deeply. Not just as a doctor cares for a patient. Not even just as a close friend cares for another friend. But as a man who has come to truly admire your incredible courage, your quiet grace, your unexpected humor, even during the absolute darkest moments. I care for you," he confessed finally, his voice low but steady, in a way I never expected, in a way that might be considered completely inappropriate given how we first met, but in a way I simply can't deny any longer. The raw, honest words hung suspended in the quiet air between them. Honest and incredibly vulnerable. Olivia felt tears spring unexpectedly to her eyes again, not tears of sadness this time, or fear, but tears of joy so profound, so utterly unexpected. It almost hurt physically. "Ben," she began, her voice choked, then stopped, momentarily overwhelmed by the intensity of her own emotions. "You don't need to say anything right now," he assured her quickly, perhaps misinterpreting her silence. "I don't expect anything in return. I just needed you to know, especially after Ethan's manipulative visit today, that my motives for being here, for helping you, have always been genuine. And if those motives have naturally evolved over time, from professional care into deep personal feelings, well, it's been an organic process, a completely natural response to truly knowing you, to witnessing your incredible strength firsthand, to sharing this unique, challenging time with you." Olivia squeezed his hand tightly. "I care for you too, Ben," she admitted simply, the confession feeling both terrifying and liberating. "More than I probably should, perhaps, more than I ever thought my bruised heart was capable of feeling again after everything that happened. But I can't ignore what I feel when I'm with you. Safe, seen, valued. It's something I never truly felt with Ethan, not even in the beginning, long before the cancer." Ben's answering smile was like sunrise breaking suddenly through heavy storm clouds. "So, where does that leave us now? In uncharted territory, I suppose," Olivia admitted honestly, managing a small smile of her own, "with a lot of potential complications still to consider. Your health always being the primary one," Ben acknowledged immediately, his physician's instincts kicking back in, "which is precisely why I'm not pushing for definitions right now, or any long-term commitments. I just wanted you to know exactly where I stand. That whatever happens with your treatment going forward, Olivia, however long this difficult journey ultimately continues, I'm here, not out of some sense of obligation, but entirely out of choice." Olivia felt a lightness spread through her that she hadn't experienced in many long months, perhaps even years, despite the cancer still lurking insidiously within her body, despite the still uncertain long-term prognosis, despite all the practical challenges undoubtedly still lying ahead. For the first time since her diagnosis, she felt a genuine, palpable sense of possibility, of hope, that had been absent for far too long. "Thank you," she whispered softly, meeting his warm gaze. "Thank you for telling me, for being honest when honesty was exactly what I needed most." Ben gently brought her hand to his lips, pressing a soft, tender kiss to her knuckles. "Always," he promised quietly. "Outside, In Eleanor Carter's beloved garden, the newly planted Franklinia tree stood slender but firmly rooted, seemingly ready now to face whatever unpredictable seasons might come its way. 3 months later, on a crisp, bright January morning, Olivia sat nervously in the oncology department's familiar imaging center, waiting anxiously for her latest scan results. The past quarter had, against all odds, seen truly remarkable improvements in her overall condition. Her energy levels were slowly but steadily returning, her weight stabilizing, her chronic pain significantly decreasing. But they had both learned through hard experience to be cautiously optimistic, to celebrate the small victories gratefully without automatically assuming larger ones were guaranteed. Ben entered the small consultation room a few minutes later, a thick file held carefully in his hands, his professional expression carefully neutral, betraying nothing. Olivia had insisted early on in their evolving personal relationship that he remain her primary physician, despite the potential complications. I trust your medical expertise implicitly, Ben, she had told him firmly back then. And perhaps even more importantly, I trust your honesty. I need both right now. Well, she prompted him now, unable to read anything from his carefully maintained professional mask. Ben placed the large scan images onto the illuminated light board on the wall, pointing to several specific areas highlighted in yellow. The primary pancreatic mass. He began, his voice calm, but unable to completely hide the underlying excitement. Has reduced in size by nearly 60% since we initiated the targeted therapy protocol 3 months ago. The liver metastases, he continued, pointing to another area, are responding even better, almost a 70% reduction in size and number. And perhaps most significantly, Olivia, your key tumor markers are now rapidly approaching normal ranges. Olivia stared intently at the illuminated images, trying desperately to fully comprehend the magnitude of what she was seeing, what he was telling her. Are you saying? No, I'm definitely not using the word remission just yet. Ben cautioned her gently but firmly. But Olivia, this represents a truly significant, clearly measurable response to the treatment. Frankly, it's better than we realistically could have hoped for at this stage. What? What does it mean? For my prognosis? Ben finally sat down beside her, allowing his professional demeanor to soften slightly, letting the relief and joy show in his eyes. It means we've moved the needle considerably. Olivia, instead of cautiously talking about months, maybe a year or two, we're now potentially talking about years, possibly many years, if this positive response continues and holds steady. Olivia slowly absorbed this staggering news, complex emotions welling up inside her so intensely that she couldn't immediately speak. After so many long, difficult months of bracing herself daily for the worst, of trying to make peace with the devastating prospect of a foreshortened future, the sudden, unexpected possibility of years stretched out before her now like an unbelievable, almost unimaginable gift. I need to design a garden, she stated suddenly, the thought emerging fully formed, surprising them both with its apparent non sequitur. Ben blinked, momentarily confused. A garden? For the hospital, Olivia explained quickly, the idea rapidly taking shape in her mind as she spoke. A healing garden, just like the one I designed all those years ago for your mother. A dedicated space where patients undergoing difficult treatments can find some measure of peace and tranquility. Where families can gather strength and support each other. Where hope, she added softly, can grow right alongside whatever is planted there. Understanding dawned instantly on Ben's face, followed quickly by a warm smile. Olivia, that's a wonderful idea. The hospital actually has that completely unused courtyard area near the south entrance. It's been a neglected eyesore for years. Just cracked concrete and a few struggling, pathetic shrubs. I know the one. Olivia nodded, remembering. I saw it during my first few weeks of treatment here. I remember thinking even back then how much potential the space had, how much it desperately needed a designer's touch. She looked directly at him now, excitement building visibly within her. I couldn't possibly do anything about it then, of course. But now, if I really do have years ahead of me, rather than just months, I want to create something truly meaningful with that precious time. Ben, something that gives back. Ben smiled again, his eyes shining now with undisguised pride and something even deeper. I think that's absolutely perfect. Olivia. And, he added with a slight twinkle in his eye, I happen to know the chairman of the hospital board fairly well. I'm quite certain he'd be very interested in hearing such a thoughtful proposal. Your father? Olivia guessed correctly. Ben nodded, looking slightly chagrined. The same. Though I should probably warn you. Once he meets you and hears your ideas, he'll likely never stop pestering you for garden advice. He's been trying unsuccessfully for years now to recreate my mother's garden at his own Beacon Hill home, with decidedly limited success. I'd be happy to help him, Olivia said softly. Truly, it would be an honor to help continue your mother's legacy in that way as well. They shared another warm smile then, both fully understanding the deep significance of the moment, not just the incredibly promising scan results, but the profound, almost mystical way their lives continued to intertwine around Eleanor Carter's garden, around a shared sense of purpose, around a connection that had defied all odds as stubbornly, as miraculously, as Olivia's own body was now defying her cancer. Spring arrived in a glorious riot of vibrant color and hopeful new growth. In the hospital courtyard, what had once been a bleak, neglected concrete space filled with struggling shrubs and accumulated debris was now a bustling construction zone. The tangible beginnings of Olivia's inspired vision rapidly taking shape under the skilled hands of the landscapers she had personally selected and meticulously briefed. The ambitious project had moved forward with remarkable speed, thanks in no small part to another generous, anonymous donation from the Carter Family Foundation, specifically earmarked by Richard Carter for the creation of the Eleanor Carter Healing Garden. Olivia had insisted on naming it in honor of Ben's mother, the woman whose original garden had unwittingly created the invisible thread connecting their lives across time and tragedy. On a warm, breezy May afternoon, Olivia stood happily at the edge of the busy construction site, reviewing updated blueprints with a landscape foreman. Her physical appearance had transformed almost as dramatically as the garden space itself in the intervening months. Her dark hair was growing back quickly now, style becomingly in soft waves. Her face had filled out healthily. Vibrant color returned permanently to her cheeks. She still tired easily, of course, still required regular maintenance treatments to keep the cancer at bay, still faced an uncertain long-term prognosis. But for now, for this precious moment, she was undeniably alive, and visibly thriving in ways that had seemed utterly impossible just one short year earlier. Miss Hayes? Olivia turned to find a young nurse approaching her, looking slightly nervous. Yes, there's a woman here asking to see you. She says she's your sister, Jessica Hayes? Olivia froze momentarily in surprise. Her sister, Jessica, whom she hadn't actually seen in person in over 2 years, whom she'd spoken to only briefly, awkwardly, right after her initial diagnosis. Here? Where is she? Olivia asked, trying to process the unexpected arrival. Waiting in the main hospital lobby. Should I tell her you're busy right now? Or? No. Olivia interjected quickly. It's okay. I'll come right away. In the hospital's spacious, bustling main lobby, Jessica Hayes stood awkwardly near the information desk, looking so much like their late mother that it momentarily took Olivia's breath away. When Jessica spotted her approaching, uncertainty flickered briefly across her features, then was quickly replaced by visible relief. Olivia, she breathed, crossing the space between them rapidly. Jessica, Olivia replied, genuinely surprised but pleased, accepting her sister's tentative, slightly awkward hug. What on earth are you doing here in Boston? Is everything okay back home? Jessica nodded, looking somewhat embarrassed now. Everything's fine back home. I saw the news reports about Ethan. About the arrest. It mentioned you. Said you were being treated here at Boston Memorial, and that you were involved in creating some kind of healing garden project. She shrugged helplessly, looking down at her hands. Liv, I should have come sooner. I know I should have. I'm so sorry, Olivia, for not being there for you when you first got sick, for letting all that distance, all those old stupid hurts between us, keep me away for so long. Olivia's mind reeled again. Ethan's arrest? She hadn't seen any news about that at all. She'd been so completely immersed in the all-consuming garden project, juggling it with her ongoing treatments, that she'd barely glanced at news headlines in weeks. When was Ethan arrested? She asked, try to keep her voice neutral. Jessica looked surprised now. About 3 days ago. It's been all over the financial news channels. Apparently, it's a huge scandal securities fraud, massive tax evasion, wire fraud, the whole 9 yards. They arrested him publicly at some big charity gala up in New York. Very dramatic. Apparently, very humiliating for him. She studied her sister's face intently. You really didn't know? Olivia slowly shook her head, a complicated mix of emotions washing over her unexpectedly. Not satisfaction, exactly. Certainly not pleasure in another person's downfall, but perhaps a quiet sense of justice finally being served, of cosmic balance somehow being restored to a universe that had seemed so wildly, cruelly unfair for so very long. No, she said finally, meeting Jessica's gaze. I guess I've been focused on other things lately. Jessica glanced around the impressive hospital lobby, her eyes landing on a large banner proudly announcing the upcoming dedication ceremony for the Eleanor Carter Healing Garden. Like this amazing garden project. Maybe? The article I read said you actually designed it yourself. Olivia nodded, a genuine smile spreading across her face now, momentarily eclipsing the unsettling news about Ethan. Yes, I did. Would you like to see it? It's still under construction. Technically, but the main bones are definitely there now. As she led her estranged sister through the familiar hospital corridors towards the transformed courtyard space, Olivia felt a strange, unexpected sense of completion wash over her. Another circle closing, another important relationship, fractured by time and misunderstanding, somehow finding its way back to her, now that she had finally found her own way back to life. Back to hope. The Eleanor Carter Healing Garden was officially dedicated on a perfect, sun-drenched June morning, exactly 1 year to the day after Olivia had first moved, frightened and uncertain, into the small guest house behind Ben's home. The hospital courtyard, once a bleak, forgotten concrete expanse, had been utterly transformed into a breathtaking oasis of tranquility, featuring winding, accessible pathways, comfortable, shaded seating areas, and meticulously selected plantings designed specifically to engage all the senses: sight, sound, smell, and touch. A large crowd had gathered for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, hospital staff proudly wearing their badges, influential board members looking pleased, current patients finding respite, along with their supportive families, and even several reporters from the local media outlets. Ben stood near the front, beside his distinguished father, Richard Carter, a man whose usually stern features softened noticeably whenever he looked either at his son or directly at Olivia. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard addressed the assembled gathering. his resonant voice carrying easily across the peaceful courtyard space. Today, we dedicate this beautiful healing garden not only in loving memory of my late wife, Eleanor, who herself found such profound solace in the restorative power of nature during her own difficult battle with cancer, but also dedicated to all who come through the doors of Boston Memorial seeking healing, seeking hope, seeking comfort. He gestured warmly towards Olivia, who stood nearby, looking radiant and healthy. We are all profoundly grateful today to Olivia Hayes, whose visionary design has miraculously created this stunning sanctuary, and whose own personal journey from patient to creator truly embodies the enduring spirit of resilience that this garden celebrates. Warm applause rippled through the appreciative crowd as Olivia stepped forward gracefully to cut the ceremonial red ribbon stretched tautly across the garden's main entrance. As the ribbon fell away, symbolically, people moved forward eagerly, exploring the newly opened space, admiring the diverse plant selections, settling onto the comfortable benches thoughtfully placed throughout, discovering the small, bubbling water feature that created a gentle, soothing natural soundtrack. Ben made his way through the mingling crowd to Olivia's side, immense pride clearly evident in his warm expression. "It's magnificent, Olivia," he murmured, looking around with genuine awe at what she had accomplished. "Even better, somehow, than the original blueprints ever suggested. Gardens are never just blueprints, Ben," Olivia replied softly, her gaze drifting towards an elderly patient in a wheelchair who was being gently guided by a nurse to a sunny spot near a profusion of blooming lavender. "They're living things, always changing, always growing. Like people, I suppose." Ben's hand instinctively found hers, their fingers intertwining naturally, comfortably. Over the past several months, their relationship had continued to evolve cautiously, thoughtfully, but steadily. Professional boundaries were carefully navigated, potential ethical considerations openly addressed through frank consultation with trusted senior colleagues. Olivia's ongoing medical treatment was now managed collaboratively by a dedicated team of specialists, with Ben acting primarily as coordinator rather than sole provider. What had begun almost impossibly as doctor and patient had organically, beautifully transformed into partners, into two people deeply linked by shared circumstance, deliberate choice, and a steadily deepening love that neither had initially expected, but both now cherished profoundly. "I have something I want to show you," Ben said quietly then, gently guiding her away from the main celebration area towards a more secluded corner of the newly dedicated garden. A last-minute addition, something that didn't quite make it onto the final plans, tucked away discreetly behind a low decorative stone wall. In a quiet, shaded nook clearly designed for private reflection and contemplation, stood a slender, graceful tree with distinctive, lobed leaves. Olivia recognized it immediately. A Franklenia, she breathed, her voice filled with wonder. "Just like the one we planted together in my mother's garden last fall," Ben confirmed, nodding. "This one came directly from the Arnold Arboretum nearby, a special cutting propagated from one of their oldest, most mature specimens. They were actually quite interested in our story, Olivia, in a unique connection between my mother's original garden and this new one you've created." Olivia reached out, touching the tree's smooth trunk gently, almost reverently, feeling the vibrant life pulsing quietly beneath the bark. Do you think it will bloom this year?" The horticulturist I consulted said it might. Ben replied hopefully. "Late summer, most likely, probably August or September. Then we'll definitely have to visit often," Olivia stated firmly, "to make sure we don't miss it." Ben's arm slipped easily around her waist then, drawing her naturally close. "I was thinking," he murmured softly, his lips close to her ear, We might be able to see it bloom every single day. Actually, if you wanted to consider moving from the guest house into the main house with me. Olivia turned slowly to face him, her heart suddenly racing in her chest. Ben, are you asking me to move in with you? I'm asking for more than that. Olivia. Ben clarified softly, his gaze intense, unwavering. I'm asking if you'd consider making our current arrangement permanent. If you'd consider becoming my wife. Olivia stared up at him, momentarily speechless. Despite the undeniable deepening of their relationship over recent months, despite the profound love that had unexpectedly grown between them, the topic of marriage hadn't been explicitly discussed before now. Her recent, traumatic experience with the institution had understandably left deep scars, and her ongoing health concerns had always made long-term planning seem inherently presumptuous, almost tempting fate. Ben, she began hesitantly, my prognosis, it's still so uncertain. The cancer could always return. I might have years ahead of me, or months, or decades. He finished gently for her, understanding her fear. None of us truly knows how long we have. Olivia, my mother certainly taught me that painful lesson. What truly matters, what she believed, is how we choose to spend the precious time we are given, and whom we choose to spend it with. He took both of her hands firmly but gently in his. Olivia Hayes, I want to spend whatever time we have together, whether it turns out to be 1 year or 50 with you. Tears welled again in Olivia's eyes, blurring his beloved face. Even knowing all the medical challenges still ahead, the ongoing treatments, the endless scans, the constant uncertainty, especially knowing those things, Ben stated firmly, his conviction absolute. I've seen your incredible strength. Olivia, your resilience, your grace under unimaginable pressure. I've watched you somehow transform profound suffering into breathtaking beauty, paralyzing fear into tangible hope. There is absolutely no one else in this world I'd rather face life's inevitable uncertainties within you. From elsewhere in the vibrant garden came the cheerful sounds of the dedication ceremony, continuing appreciative applause. Lively conversation, celebratory toast being made. But in their private, secluded corner, time seemed momentarily suspended as Olivia considered Ben's heartfelt proposal. In the tumultuous year since her devastating diagnosis, she had lost almost everything she once held dear: her health, her financial security, her marriage, her career. Yet standing here now, in this beautiful healing garden she herself had designed, beside this remarkable man who had seen her at her absolute worst and had loved her anyway, she felt richer, more whole, more truly herself than she ever had back when her life had merely seemed perfect on the surface. Yes, she whispered simply, the single word carrying all the certainty her overflowing heart now felt. Yes, Ben Carter, I would be honored to be your wife. Ben's face lit with pure, unadulterated joy as he gathered her gently into his arms, kissing her with a profound tenderness that spoke volumes of reverence for the inherent fragility and astonishing resilience of life, of love, and of precious, unexpected second chances. As they walked slowly back to rejoin the ongoing celebration, arm in arm, Olivia glanced back fondly at the slender Franklinia tree, the rare, tenacious tree that had nearly vanished completely from the wild but somehow survived against all odds. The tree that bloomed beautifully late in the season, long after other flowers had faded. The tree that had mysteriously, beautifully linked her painful past to her hopeful present in ways she never could have possibly imagined when she first collapsed, lost and broken, in that restaurant just one seemingly endless year ago. One man had abandoned her callously when she needed him most, unable or unwilling to bear the heavy weight of her illness. the frightening prospect of her potential death. Another man had stepped forward bravely, unwilling to let her go, fiercely committed to fighting alongside her, whether that fight lasted for mere months or stretched out over many decades. And in the garden between them, first Eleanor Carter's private sanctuary, and now this vibrant new public healing space life continued its stubborn, beautiful, eternal cycle of growth, decay, and miraculous renewal. The garden her younger, naive self had once designed for a dying woman she barely knew had somehow created an invisible thread of connection that would eventually, unexpectedly, lead to her own profound healing, her own unlooked-for second chance at both love and life. As she and Ben rejoined the dedication ceremony, graciously accepting congratulations for the garden's successful completion, Olivia felt a deep sense of completion within herself as well. A circle finally closing, a story continuing, a brand new chapter just beginning in the unfolding book of her life. She had first entered Boston Memorial Hospital as a terrified patient, likely expecting death. She was leaving it today as a hopeful creator, fully embracing life in all its messy, unpredictable beauty. And between those two disparate points in time, a garden had grown not just of plants and soil and winding pathways, but of hope, of connection, of a love that had somehow managed to flourish against all odds. In the most unlikely, challenging soil imaginable, the Franklenia elatomata, the rare flowering tree that serves as a poignant symbol connecting Olivia and Ben's story, is named after Benjamin Franklin and is considered extinct in the wild. Remarkably, the only specimens that exist today are direct descendants of seeds collected just before 1803. Like this remarkable, resilient tree, the most beautiful and meaningful parts of our lives sometimes emerge unexpectedly from what seems irrevocably lost or utterly impossible. A talented garden designer creates a final sanctuary for a dying woman, never knowing that years later, that very same garden would become her own essential place of healing. A dedicated doctor helps a stranger collapsing in a restaurant, completely unaware that she once brought profound peace to his own mother during her final, difficult days. These intricate threads of connection, often invisible until they're suddenly, vividly revealed, weave mysteriously through all our lives, creating complex patterns and meanings we often recognize only in retrospect. Thank you for spending this time with Olivia and Ben's powerful story. We hope it resonated with you. Until next time, remember to look for the unexpected gardens blooming in your own life, the hidden connections, the unforeseen blessings that might be growing quietly, unseen, just waiting for the perfect moment to finally bloom. What did you think of Olivia's journey and the unexpected way her life intertwined with Ben's? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And if this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true stories about resilience, love, and the incredible power of the human spirit. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next episode.